Hello and welcome to another edition of Santos on Sports, along with my good friend and partner, Mr. Chris Santos. I am Paul Santos. We'd like to thank our sponsors for helping us have a show here on the air. Scotty's Pub, 202 Pleasant Street in Fall River. Citywide Glass with not one, not two, but three locations to serve you. One in Dartmouth, one in Fall River, and one in Taunton. Lakeville Athletic Club, 325 Bedford Street in Lakeville, where you can play tennis and pickleball. And John Seed, attorney at law, former quarterback of the New Bedford High Whalers. He's at 156 8th Street in New Bedford, and you can catch up with him at johnseedlaw.com. Mr. Chris, what's going on with you, sir?
Hey, Paul, how you doing? Great weekend that just went by. Some tremendous playoff games. Don't forget the national championship game that was on Monday as well. Saw some games that I guess you could scratch your head on a couple, but at the same time, you could sit back and say, I'm not surprised that happened. And then you think about this weekend, which is, of course, our topic of tonight's show, which two teams will go to the Super Bowl. So please feel free to call us at 774-218-3393. 4 teams left. We have Washington at Philly. This will be the third game now. They played twice in the regular season. This is the third one in Philadelphia. And then it's the Mahomes and Allen matchup once again, another big one at Kansas City. So let's see how the ball rolls into this one this weekend.
Well, why don't we start with the NFC, right? You got Washington and Philadelphia. Now, Chris, a while back, talked about how dangerous Philadelphia was, and he was right on the money. I'm watching that team. I saw one of the analysts say it has the best offensive line in the game. And, even with the passing game, it's a passing league and so on and so forth. But I got to tell you, a lot of times we just don't talk enough about the offensive line. When you got an offensive line, there's so much that you can do, especially when you got a guy like Jalen Hurts. Philadelphia is dangerous. But how about the upstarts of the league? They were 4-13 last year, the same record as our beloved New England Patriots. Mm-hmm. And they've turned it around. But behind Mr. It Factor, Jason Daniels, they find themselves in the NFC Championship game. Interesting. I don't know. I think being the upstart, sooner or later the Cinderella runs out. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, listen, if Jaden Daniels wins this game, he will be the first rookie quarterback ever to lead his team to a Super Bowl. That is quite outstanding. Now, he hasn't gotten there yet. Can he do it? So they played in Philadelphia. They lost by 12, 26-18. They kind of controlled him. He threw for 1 touchdown, had 1 interception. And Philly's D looked pretty good. The second game was at Washington. 27-14, Washington in the lead, end of 3 quarters. Then it was that it factor and the big turnaround where Daniels threw for 5 touchdowns that game. And they pull it off and win 36-33 in dramatic fashion. Now, Paul, I'm a firm believer of defense wins championships. I still think Philadelphia is the better team. I think they're overall better. I think they will find a way at home to run the ball with Barkley with that offensive line that you talked about. Still get Hurts moving as long as he's healthy. And they will find a way to corral Daniels and hold him enough to win this ball game and go to the Super Bowl a couple of weeks after that. So I still think it may be close and Daniels will do some things. I just don't know if he can get him over the hump this year. I thought he would play well against Detroit. I thought he would score a lot of points against Detroit because that defense, who's been banged up, gives up a lot of points, and they did, and they lost the game. So I don't think Philly will do that. I think they'll have a game plan for him, and they will find a way to move on and go to the Super Bowl.
All right, why don't I jump in and give my thoughts on the NFC?
Sure.
I got to agree with you. I think Daniels is fantastic. In fact, yep. I'm going to root for him in this game. I'm going to root for Daniels because.
Oh no! Listen, I'm rooting for him too.
Yeah. Okay.
Look, I'm an NFC East guy. I'm a Cowboy fan. The team I hate the most in football is the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, you had a bad experience in the parking lot too. There.
We won't go there. That's one. Number 2 is obviously, Washington's in my division too, so I usually root against them, and they're playing against each other. but I would rather see Washington pull it off. I mean, I'm not going to root for either one, but if I had to pick a win, I'd rather have Washington, Philadelphia. So I'll agree with you on that one. And I know you like the it factor, but I don't know if he's going to be able to handle it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hate to pick against the team that I'm rooting for. It's nice to pick the team and then root the team that you pick for, but I'm going to pick a team and then root for the other team. I just find it hard to see Washington going into Philadelphia in the playoffs in that environment with the rookie quarterback against the seasoned team like Philadelphia and coming away with that victory. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm going to root for the kid. This kid is magic. This kid is, I really enjoy watching players like that. We talk about the it factor and all that. There were just some players like they have all the package, right? Okay, everything on paper. They got speed and they got a good arm and they do this and they do that. And then there's just that one little extra thing, And so far, I don't know, maybe he's been lucky. He's got a few bounces. I mean, the Hail Mary was a lucky bounce and everything. But boy, I'll tell you, he threw some passes. I mean, he threw one right on the money, like drops a dime right in there, in the clutch and everything else. And he just has a coolness about him. I just enjoy rooting for them. I tend to like underdogs anyway. And I think he's an exciting player. But again, to go into Philadelphia now, again, I was watching that Hurts. Jalen Hurts has been playing great. And, every single time they have the ball, it's like you talk about 4-down territory. The whole field is 4-down territory with this guy. You get the fourth and 1, and it's like automatic. He's going to do the tush push and get the first down. So to go in there and beat him in this environment, I got to go with Philadelphia, but I am rooting for Washington. All right, now that leaves us with the AFC.
Yeah, his presence in the pocket is pretty special, and he looks very confident. I think Philly will give him some new wrinkles and try to really ruffle his feathers. And I think, like I said, I think they find a way to hold on and take that victory. So hoping for a good game, another good battle like we saw over this weekend, and a close one as well, and that would be nice. So the NFC, has got a good game, and this next one too, Paul. All you got to do is mention two names, Mahomes and Allen, and you know how really good the AFC is, and how much they really want this game to be exciting, as some of the other ones have so far.
All right, so obviously, yes, it is Buffalo at Kansas City. Mm-hmm. Buffalo is having their best year. This feels like one of their best shots to get to the Super Bowl, but they've got to do it by going to Arrowhead Stadium and knocking off the champs, led, of course, by not only Mahomes, but obviously Travis Kelce and the rest of the crew, an experienced group, a veteran group that knows what it takes to win and all that. But, boy, it kind of feels like Buffalo's year, but can they go into Arrowhead and knock off the champs? What do you think?
Not only are they going to beat the champs, the way things have been going for Kansas City, you got to beat the refs there too, because there's been some calls that have been really in favor of Kansas City. And again, listen, when you're winning, a lot of things go your way. And Paul, I know you know this because you saw it for 20 years when a lot of things went your way. And it's interesting to hear some fans out there say, oh, Kansas City gets this and Kansas City gets that. And it's a lot of local fans, and I'm scratching my head going, I remember this, and I remember that, and I remember this, and I remember that. But that's another time, because I want to talk about this game. This game is very exciting. You have the high explosive Josh Allen that does what he does, and he carries a lot on his shoulders. So he will need a lot of help, but he always gets it done and scores high. Meanwhile, on the other side, this has not been Kansas City's explosive offensive show that we've seen in some of the other Super Bowl runs. This has been, we get by, we find a way, we get it done, just barely, but enough, and they continue to win. And you said experience, you said veterans, you said coaching, they have all that. And that's what makes them tough. And unfortunately, I think they find a way again to make it happen, and they get to the Super Bowl one way or another, by a point, by 3 points, a block this, that, and the other thing. Kansas City just finds that coaching, that extra play, the extra call, the extra yellow flag, whatever it is, but it's happened all year. I don't see why it will stop now. I think Kansas City and the Eagles make their way to the Super Bowl. Am I rooting for that? No. I would rather see the Bills win. But like you with Washington, I don't know if I'm going to get that. I don't know if Allen has enough by himself. Cook is going to have a big game. Kincaid's going to have a big game. And his receiving core, he needs help. Besides, he just can't carry the load all the time. So I just see Kansas City taking that one. Somehow, some way, they find it and they win it.
And Buffalo beat Kansas City during the regular season, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you are correct.
So now you got to go do it again. You know what I
Yes.
mean? No, I'm with you. It's interesting. You and I are on the same page here. I think Buffalo has a good shot to win the game, obviously. I mean, it should be a great game. But somehow Kansas City, they just pull these games out of their rear end and so forth. Somehow they're able to do it. I know the Patriot fans are moaning and groaning about the calls all the time, and the officials are in the back pocket of Kansas City and blah, blah, blah. I find that annoying, actually. I've talked about this with you before. I've been a Patriots fan my whole life, but I just can't stand the crybaby stuff. Oh, look at the call again. They're just so protective of the Patriot dynasty that they can't stand the fact that Kansas City has this great team, And of course, they don't want Mahomes to do what Brady didn't do and win 3 in a row. So I kind of, first of all, I'm going to pick Kansas City. I agree with you. I think it's tough to go into Arrowhead and knock off the champs. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, though. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, but I think it's going to be tough to do for all the reasons that you said. Kansas City, they got veterans. They know what it takes to win. You have the Mahomes factor, the home field. Andy Reid, great coach. I just think it's going to be a tough.
Listen, let's not forget the kickers. Usually for Buffalo, it comes down to kicking. So, the kickers could become very important. 30-21, first time they played in Buffalo. The Bills won. Allen threw for 262 with 1 touchdown, and that was it, and an interception. So they did some more by just Josh Allen, which is nice to see. They're going to need that kind of game, especially on the road. Allen had also ran for 1 that game, so that's 2 scores for him. But in Arrowhead, things are a lot different. And, with the hostile atmosphere. But if anyone can pull this off, hopefully it's number 17 in the blue and white, and they get the job done. But it's very difficult to get done. So keep an eye on Andy Reid coming up with some good plays on offense and finding a way to shut down Josh Allen.
Well, if you recall, right during the Patriot dynasty, and I remind my Patriot comrades that, things always seem to go the Patriots' way. They'd get the big call or something would happen. They won a game in Foxborough one year and a kicker blew a 25-yard field goal in the opposition. These weird things just happen. And when the games were in Foxborough, the Patriots had a huge home field advantage in Foxborough. It was impossible to go into Foxborough and beat the Patriots. And Arrowhead is kind of like that too. It just very tough to go in there and beat them. So I'm going to go with Kansas City. Now, who am I rooting for? Well, I have mixed feelings because I tend to root for great players who haven't had a chance to win. Like if Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills don't win a Super Bowl, he's going to have to hear like the Dan Marino thing. Again, he's got a long way to go, but I'm just saying. And it's unfair because, in fact, we'll have to do a whole show on this. Maybe it's boring, but I don't like it when people say, Tom Brady won, so many Super Bowls. No, Tom Brady didn't win so many Super Bowls. The New England Patriots won 6 Super Bowls, of which he was part of the team in Tampa Bay too. So was he a big part of it? Yes, but you can't say one. It's not a tennis match. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So again, Josh Allen could be play for a long time, never be on a Super Bowl championship team, and it's not his fault because it takes a whole team to win.
Sure.
So I find that phrase to be a little annoying. But anyway, I kind of feel bad for Buffalo. Like if they get to this point and they still can't win, and you've got like Mahomes winning again, it's kind of like, oh, here we go again, right? On the other hand, I do enjoy watching my Patriot fans squirm, about, here comes Mahomes again, he's not as good as Brady, forget all that, Can't you just admit the kid's a great player, you know what I mean? And he has the it factor and all that. I mean, just relax and admit it for God's sake, But anyway, we got our first caller coming in. This is one of Chris's favorites. Hello, you are on Santos on Sports. Nelson from Fall River.
Hey, it is cold out here, man. But look, I have a stat for you guys.
You have a stat?
I have
Wow.
a stat. It's against the Cowboys, but it goes to present day. And when it goes to present day, it's gonna be shocking.
All right.
Chris, I hope you're ready.
Yes.
I'm ready.
All right. So Ertz and Daniels, those two studs, I think they're going to be the future for the Commanders and the Eagles, right?
Yep.
So the Cowboys, they haven't made it to the NFC Championship game since 1996.
Correct.
Both Hurts and Daniels, they were born. They grew up in life.
Correct.
They went to college. They became pro athletes.
Correct.
And they managed to still make the NFC Championship game before Dallas did.
Correct.
They were in the womb for 9 months, and the Cowboys still couldn't make it to the NFC Championship game.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's the statistic that you wanted to come up with?
Yes.
Wow.
It's a bad one.
My question is though, why is it just Dallas? That should be Atlanta. That should be the Chargers. That should be Miami. That should be New Orleans. That could be all those teams. It's
Detroit.
not just Dallas, because only
hear
certain teams can make it there. And I would hope that you would think even the Giants or the Jets, those two New York teams.
Well, look, we hear from Dallas that there's always this year. It's going to be this year.
That's not true. That's because everybody thinks that the persona is it's Cowboy Nation, America's team. So people want to get pissed off, and that's why they say, Dallas thinks they're going to win it again. If you talk to true Dallas fans, we don't look at it from that way. I know I don't. I look at it what year I have and go year by year, what I think our prediction can be. But I don't sit there every year and say, this is my year, we're going to the Super Bowl. I've never done that, and I never will.
Well, you have a brain, Chris. You have a brain.
Well, there's some fans of mine that do, but I understand what you're saying. As much as you thought when the Giants had beaten the Patriots, they got there, and we haven't seen the Giants since. So I get it. We could talk like that back and forth all day, but you have a brain enough to know that right now the Giants have nothing. The bowl is tough. They have no quarterback. They got nothing going on. They got one guy right now in their wide receiver. Besides that, this organization is in trouble, and they need to find weapons. Same thing with the New York Jets. They just come out and said, all right, we're going to take a shot with Aaron Glenn, and let's see what we can do with him. And there's another one. So, there's a lot that goes on to getting to where these titles are. Is it all Hurts? Is it all Daniels? No. It's an organization that built up from scratch and gotten them there. Am I happy that it's the NFC East? Sure. It's showing that division is as tough as can be right now in the NFL. So I have nothing wrong with that. But it's not my Cowboys. It's them instead.
It's interesting here. Nelson from Fall River calls up. He says he has a statistic. I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be the passing game, or it's going to be the running game, or maybe it has to do with who's the coach or the offensive coordinator. No, he comes in with, okay, Hurts and Daniels' mamas got pregnant, carried the babies to term, grew up, they're waddling around, mama, they grow up, they go to college and everything else, and they still get to the championship before the Cowboys.
I was giving my stat at least a rookie quarterback to make it to the Super Bowl the first time ever. I'm looking for a stat like that. He comes up with something from, birth rates. I don't know.
That was great.
Nelson, beside the point, Nelson, let's get back to realistic. Which two teams are going to the Super Bowl?
All right. So Super Bowl for me, now that Baltimore is out of the equation, if Washington wins this game, and if Buffalo wins this game,
yep.
I really believe that Washington has a real shot of beating Buffalo.
Okay.
Now, if Baltimore was still in this, then that's a different story. But they're out. That one team changed the entire dynamic. So we're gonna see what plays out. It is tough to three-peat. But if it goes this way, Chris, Washington. Listen, they have so much to be proud of, both them and Philly, but especially Washington. They took a huge gamble. on this young kid. He's playing as if he's been in the league for over 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it is truly magnificent of how mature he is to weigh in the moment, to not let it affect it. And to me, that reminds me of Brady-esque, because Brady, as much as I agree with, Deflate Gate and all those spy gates kind of helped him along the way, but Brady never, ever, ever he never let the moment get to him. Like, he was zoned in. Like, his eyes were locked in down the field. And, he had that look.
All right, so what two teams, Nelson? What two teams we got here?
I'm going to say the Super Bowl for me is going to be Buffalo and Washington.
Ooh. Okay, wow. All right, so Buffalo's going to go into Arrowhead and pull off the win.
Mm-hmm.
Look, the way they're playing, I mean, it's just it's truly remarkable. But I also want to mention this about the Patriots. No loyalty to Mayo. Absolutely no loyalty. And it's like, you have to give somebody at least a few years, 2 or 3 maybe, 3 tops but 2. But you're going to fire the guy when he's done with the press conference?
I mean, I think they think he might have just lost the room and the way it was going, and they just figured, you know what, let's just start from scratch.
He had nothing to work with.
That's true.
I mean,
that's true.
It's like you wanted him to be like Houdini, and just come up with a winning season. Like, come on, you got to have something to work with. So I truly believe they should have given him a real shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying if Vrabel does a horrible job and bringing back Daniels, I think they brought him for a long term. But despite that, if he doesn't do well, if he doesn't get fired, that to me is not going to look right, because I think Pats fans should say, hey, you know what? Forget about favoritism. Forget about the fact that, look, he's a great guy. We all know his history, but you got to treat everyone the same. If he can't produce, he should go too.
All right.
But if he does, though, Nelson, what do you do then? What do you say then if he wins 7? Let's say he wins 9. They make the playoffs. What do you say then about Mayo? And you say about how the room of Vrabel and his players, how they get along and they play better for him and they do a good job. And they brought Daniels back and it seems to work out and the offense gets better and so forth. So what do you say then? So you're looking at it from the negative point. Look at it from the positive point. What happens then?
I feel, and again, if there's a different result for next season, and there's an improvement, and they win games, obviously you don't want to change direction, right? Because something's clicking in that organization and everyone's winning. But I'm just saying, if look, the Patriots, if they screw up again and they don't win, and it's almost the same thing like this season here, almost like. You got to get rid of him too. Like, you can't just keep him there and just let it ride. Because to me, like, what else was the motivation to get rid of Mayo if you have the same productivity of a season for the next one with the new guy?
All right.
I mean, it's an explanation that people need, especially Pats fans, because it's going to be scratching their heads as to what was the mindset if they still have almost the same season next one like they do here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. No, there's no question that Mayo was given a really bad hand to play, and they put him in a tough spot, and even the owner admits that. But anyway, so you got Buffalo and Washington. You got to love that kid. You got to love the magic of Daniels, huh?
Oh, listen, he is
the it factor.
True stud. He has it all. He's gonna make a lot of money. He's gonna make a lot of money. Philly too. Philly, don't sleep on him either. Hurts, he's great too. But if it does come out to be, look, the way Washington played against who they played, it was a true shock.
Yeah,
everyone thought that Detroit was going to win that game.
Yeah,
but the way with the defense, the way he scrambles, and it's just the way he commands the presence on the field. He's mature as a rookie of the year. He is going to go very far, and I hope they give him a long-term contract. He's already deserved it, in my opinion. So I really like what they're doing. And again, I'm a big fan of the smaller market teams, because they do have something to bring to the table. It just can't be all about the other teams that we know. It just makes things more interesting. But look, Buffalo's a New York team. All right, we in here. New York is in the house.
Oh, no, he's going to try to roll Buffalo into New York now?
New York, listen, New York is in the house. Okay, New York is in the playoffs.
Man.
Okay,
Come on.
Listen, we might have a parade. New York might still have a parade this year. Okay,
just upstate New York.
hey, it's within the border of New York.
So
Let's go. Let's make it happen.
So wait a minute, you get to have 3 teams that you're rooting for, or have to have one?
Paul. As long as we've known Nelson, we've heard the Giants and we've heard the Jets. He's never come out with Buffalo in the time that we've known him. Now, all of a sudden, he comes out with New York and Buffalo. I'll tell you.
But Buffalo's a New York team.
Buffalo, New York.
Come on.
Killing me.
All right, Nelson. Hey, we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you.
Stay warm.
Yeah, all right.
You too.
We'll talk to you again before the Super Bowl, hopefully.
All right, you guys.
Thanks very much.
The weekend.
Hey, you can start rooting for Houston and anybody in the state of Texas. You can root for, right? Same thing.
Well, listen, I could go Dallas, I could go Houston, I could just start making, all kinds of teams too. No, but to get back to our question in reality, it's interesting because we're going the opposite of what Nelson said. I mean,
yes.
we're thinking KC and the Eagles. And he's coming out with obviously Washington and Buffalo. Even though we would like it the way he predicts it, we just don't think that that's going to happen. So, hey, that's a good answer. It's good for, the camaraderie, for the battle of these 4 teams that are, rivalries. And so right now, Allen and Mahomes have been a rival. The NFC East is just rivals when all those 4 teams meet each other. So it's a lot of fun. I'm just hoping for good games. Fun things to watch as we saw over the last weekend and see what happens come Super Bowl.
All right. If you'd like to jump in like Nelson did, please do. We'd love to hear from you. 774-218-3393. We're talking about Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, and, they only won 4 games last year like the Patriots did this year. And you wonder to yourself, in today's NFL, it doesn't really take that long to flip it around, but a lot of things have to go your way. Obviously, number one, you got to have the magic of the quarterback. But then you look at Washington, right? They hit on that draft. They've got 4 or 5 key players in the draft that are playing and contributing to the team. And then they went out in free agency and they got another 4 or 5 good players and plugged them in. Not household names, but guys that buy in. And then once you have the magic of the quarterback, and things start going your way and people start to believe that this is going to work and they buy in, right? Now the snowball is coming down the hill, and so I'm watching all that. Okay, then I look at the Patriots, right? And I see Drake May. Now it's too early to criticize him or to wonder what he is, but, he's got a great arm. He's really smart. He looks like a veteran out there, but then does he have that extra thing? Does he have that it factor? There's a couple of times he could have won the game at the end. He threw an interception. Now, I know you mentioned, well, maybe that wasn't his fault. Well, the one that he threw it into the wind was his fault. Mm-hmm. When it really came time to let's separate the men from the boys here, he didn't really do it. Now, again, he doesn't have the roster that Washington has and everything else, but that worries me a little bit. Is this guy going to be like a Patrick Mahomes? Is he going to be like a Jayden Daniels? Or is he going to be Phil Rivers? And we're just waiting for him to blow the last play. I hate to be so harsh, but some people have that it thing and some people don't.
Well, we've seen this before, Paul. And recently I go back to Tampa Bay when they had Jameis Winston and they were like 8-8. And they said, listen, we would be a Super Bowl team if we have a quarterback. And so out goes Winston, in comes Brady, and they win the whole thing. So, yes, it's the most important position in football. There's no doubt about it. And if you have pieces of the puzzle surrounded and you need that one little step, and of course, it's the big step because it's the most important position. And they said, yes, we have this, and Daniels can lead us even further to get to where we want to be. So they went out and said, we have what it takes. We went get Austin Eckler. We have Terry McLaurin. We got some of those different things that go on, and we got 2 or 3 solid running backs, 2 or 3 good wide receivers. We got Ertz from Philly to boast a tight end spot. So that factors in when you make that next pitch. Now, does that make me say that if they drafted Drake May instead, Washington, and now May goes there and Daniels went to New England, things would be the same. Obviously, you can't say that because you have no idea. But you have to figure out what we've seen from both. And what I've seen just looks like more poise, more leadership, and just better overall game with ability from running to throwing. Everything just favors Daniels more than it does May, in my opinion. And so it's led them where they want. They made their choice. They made the right choice, I guess, and it's working out for them, especially this year. Now, remember, Houston did it with C.J. Stroud, and look what he did that year. Now, he came back. He was a little rough this year, but they still made the playoffs. But, not enough to get him over the hump in Kansas City. But Stroud in his second year, still did what they needed to do. So there's some work with Houston, like Diggs got hurt and a couple others. So that kind of got to them a little bit. But you can see where Washington's coming from and how they've gotten better.
I'm looking at the Patriots, right? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, we got to rebuild, and all that. And they were talking about this in Boston radio, and I tend to agree with this, right? Why do we have to look at it like at this big, long rebuild? You're going to win 4 games, and you're going to win 6 games, and you're going to win 7 games, you're going to win 10. Why are we looking at it like that? Look at
Washington. Look at Washington.
Why can't we flip it in 1 year? Why can't next year we be a 500 team battling for a playoff spot?
Yeah. Why not?
I don't see why. I mean, it doesn't take some of these games. Look back at the Patriots, some of these games, even the way that it was, they could have won 2 or 3 more games than they did. So a lot of times it just comes down to that one extra play. Even Belichick and the coaches will say that these games are decided by, 2 or 3 plays. Hey, look at that Detroit game, right? I don't know. I know you were away and you had some business to attend to, but, I'm looking at that game and I'm like, Detroit always tends to blow it. And then the coach there, some of the things that he did, I mean, in the middle of the game, he's coming down the field, he's moving the ball, and then he calls this bizarre play where it was that play like Edelman did, where Edelman threw the ball for a touchdown. He had the quarterback send it over to one of the backs, and then he threw an interception. And I'm like, what is he doing that for? They were moving down the field without, if you can't stop us, there's no need to call a play like that. You only need to call a play like that unless, if you're in a situation where you need to. So he tends to like overcoach. Like last year, we kept going for on 4th down. It's like, hey, just, let the players play. Don't be like doing all this extra stuff. And I don't know. I hate to criticize him because he's done a great job, and it's tough to make these decisions and everything. But I wasn't surprised that Detroit got knocked off. I really wasn't.
No, and then they had a lot of injuries, and their defense gave up a lot of points, and there was some different things. Now they just lost the defensive line coach to the Patriots. Now their defensive coordinator. They lost their offensive coordinator, now the coach of the Chicago Bears. And then they just lost Aaron Glenn, now head coach of the Jets. So they've lost 3 guys, Dan Campbell, from his coaching staff. So he's got some work to do on that part. But Paul, to go back to New England, and not to get away from my question, but 4-13, do you expect better next year? Well, I expect 7 players out of the draft and hopefully 5 or 6 players from free agency. And that's 13 players that can help your squad get better. That's what you need to get done this year. Besides what you've done with your coaching, you need to find the players and you need to get that under your belt. And when you do, maybe you can make that turn. But it's not going to happen, I don't think, with the crew that you have now. Something has to get better.
Well, that's what Washington did. They had a number of hits on the draft. I mean, the Patriots have just had abysmal drafts. Even when Belichick was there, they just haven't been able to do anything with the draft. Now, on the other hand, how much better is Jalen Daniels making the players around him? Like sometimes that quarterback with the it factor, he can make other players look better than they would be if they were on the Patriots. Okay, so there's that. But getting back to your point, yes, you go out in free agency, you get some good players, you have a good draft for a change, for God's sakes, and you put that all around May. Now you got Mike Vrabel, an experienced coach. He's got Josh McDaniels. We can talk about that, offensive coordinator. You mentioned as we were coming on the air, he's got Terrell Williams as defensive coordinator. I mean, Tennessee always had some tough defensive teams, to grind it out and everything else. So to me, I don't see there's any reason why they can't be in the hunt for a playoff spot. And while we're talking about that, we haven't had a chance to talk about, what do you think of Mike Vrabel, Josh Daniels, and Terrell Williams coming into the Patriots?
Paul, I've never done this on this show, but I'm going to do it. I will guarantee you.
Guaranteed. Oh, no.
The Patriots will be better next year in their record than this year.
Wow. Oh, my God. What an earth-shattering
Okay, so
prediction.
Nelson, who's come up with, when they were 4-13, and what happens if they're the same? I'm guaranteeing you they will be better than what they were this year. No doubt in my mind.
Hey, maybe you can go for another over-under.
Let's not get carried away now. I still say I should have won that. But it is what it is, and we'll just move on to the following year.
How many did they have to win? They had to win 5, right?
They had to win 5, and they won 4. Yes, exactly. And there was a couple of games there.
That was a tough one. I remember watching the game, and the Patriots blow the game in the last minute. I'm like, I'm a Patriots fan, and I'm all upset. But Chris has got a couple of Benjis on the line there, and he's not that happy either. For those who are watching, Chris had a bet that the Patriots would win at least 5 games, and they won 4. So that's the way it goes. But anyway, let's toss that question out there. Who's going to the Super Bowl? 774-218-3393. You mentioned Guarantee. We haven't heard from Mr. Guarantee in a while. I know he's been busy, so hopefully he can check in at some point. And, of course, we heard from Nelson from Fall River, which is always fun. But I think these 4 games, the teams that are actually in the Final Four, I mean, look at the quality of – you start with the quarterbacks, right? I mean, these are 4 of the best quarterbacks in the league. Now, we got a lot of good quarterbacks floating around out there. We've had this kind of flurry of new quarterbacks come into the situation. But, Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's just a rock out there. When it's 4th and 1, I mean, I'm looking at the 4th and 1. It's like you might as well just give him the first down. I mean, this guy has got – and he throws the ball much better than he did earlier. And he can run. He's got so much power. Then you got the magic of the it factor of the kid. Jalen Daniels was pulling games out of his ass and somehow winning the game. Then you go over to the AFC, you got Josh Allen and of course, Patrick Mahomes and all the other supporting cast and the coaching and everything else. Wow, what a great lineup for these last 2 games going to the Super Bowl.
All right, so let me ask you this one, Paul. Andy Reid, Sean McDermott, Nick Sirianni, and Dan Quinn. How do you rate them as coaches 1 through 4? Do you think Andy Reid is number 1?
Andy Reid number 1, and I don't know. I kind of like Dan Quinn, what he's been doing this year.
Okay.
McDermott maybe 3rd, and that other coach 4th. But again, they're all good. But I will make an observation, right?
And the reason I say that because now when you get the playoffs, there's going to be some clock management. Yeah. There's going to be some timely decisions. There's going to be some different things that come down. That's where, Andy Reid can win you a game.
Yeah, right.
That's where some guys, as you said, Dan Campbell maybe cost them that game.
Yeah.
So start thinking about the coaching too, not just about the playing. Because you got to go out and execute, but you got to get the play calls and you got to get the clock management and you got to do all that stuff to have your team prepared. Well, who's number 1? Andy Reid right now. Sean McDermott has not been the greatest, let's say, at that situation. And I don't think Sirianni and, Quinn is kind of new to the ball game, even though he's coached prior, didn't have much success. So it's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, Andy Reid, his resume even predates his time with Kansas City. So he's up there being considered one of the great coaches of all time and so forth. But isn't it interesting that, you talk about who's the greatest coach of all time. They always say Belichick because Belichick has all those rings, right? But then you take away Brady and he was, not even 500. So you have that whole argument. Okay, the guy's a student of the game. I'm not taking that away from him at all, But then you got Andy Reid, right? Well, Andy Reid now has Mahomes, right? So they're winning. All right. So my point is that, it's so easy to credit the coach when you have the players. You know what I mean? Like now Andy Reid, let's say the Kansas City wins a couple more Super Bowls. All of a sudden Andy Reid is the, the greatest coach of all time, Well, when Bruce Arians had Brady, he won the Super Bowl too. You know what I mean? So as long as you don't blow it, you got all the players, chances are you're going to win. So I'm not taking anything away from Andy Reid or
no, I understand, but you still got, I thought
you got to have the players. You got to have the players,
I thought Dan Campbell in Detroit had, a good team this year and a lot of good players and thought it was their year. But, Detroit, unfortunately, is Detroit and they struggle doing what they do to get where they need to be. So, unfortunately for them, the greatness went away. But Andy Reid's been known to make some of those calls, Paul, those shuffle passes and those kind of trick plays that kind of get them here and there. So, they've been known compared to teams who don't do that and they just shove it down your throat and they run it down there and they come at you full speed, hard nose, that kind of deal. So I think Andy has opened it up a little bit more the more he's gotten to know Patrick and some of these other guys. But he still has what it takes to run the ship. And you still need someone to run the ship.
Absolutely, 100%. And he's, I believe, 66, 67 years old. So you got to wonder, how much longer he's going to be around. And, you talk about, how many wins he's got compared to Belichick and these other great coaches like Don Shula and so forth. But he's right up there in the conversation, that's for sure, as he continues to have success with Kansas City. And, of course, he had success with Philadelphia as well. So he's definitely had some accomplishments. Let me ask you about Drake May. I know it's so early to assess Drake May, right? Mm-hmm. The Patriot fans and me, one of them, when he came in there and he started playing, like, whoa, look at this guy. This guy's better than I thought he was going to be. Gee, that's great. And you kind of gave us a spark and all that. But then when all was said and done, they never won when he was playing. I think he won one game. Again, not his fault. A couple of times he threw a couple of bad interceptions. He's had a lot of turnovers. And so that worries me. You know what I mean? Again, he doesn't have the players around him that, say, Daniels has. But I don't know. I think we, the Patriot fans, have gotten a little bit too excited too early with Drake May. I mean, he may be very good. He may be okay. I don't know what he's going to be. But do you think that we got a little excited a little too early?
Paul, you watch Caleb Williams get drafted. You watch Jaden Daniels get drafted. Both started right away. There was no question they were going to do it. Both teams did it, and they said, we're rolling with the punches. You roll the dice and see what happens. Patriots went the cautious way. They went with Brissett. They waited. They waited to say, okay, now we'll give the kid a chance. Maybe he needs some more seasoning. Maybe he needs to, we need to work with him in the preseason. We need to work with him to get to know our game plan more. So right there tells me how different he is than Williams and Daniels. I mean, that should tell you just enough because they didn't have the confidence to go out and play him right away as much as Washington did with Daniels and Williams did with the Bears. And look what Chicago did this year. Probably a worse offensive line than New England because Williams got sacked about 1 million times. And so think about how that came into play. And they waited on it. So I don't know if the trust confidence is there as the other two guys are. And has it now gotten there and go, oh, yes, we now have the trust no matter what. He's our guy, and we're going all in with number 10.
All right, Butch is in Acushnet. Hello.
Butch.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
What's going
Good
on?
Afternoon, Butch. Which two teams will go to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, getting ready for a big playoff weekend. I'm looking forward to some good football. Although I think that I don't think that the AFC game will be very competitive. Perhaps.
Really?
Maybe if Buffalo can find some defense somewhere, and Buffalo offense can score 60 or something. They have to throttle Kansas City to win the game. If they leave it close and in the hands of the referees, who knows what could happen. And then, again, the NFC games, I'm not sure. I think Washington can, I think that should be the better game. Philadelphia can run the ball, of course, with Saquon, but their passing game is not very strong. And Washington's hot, man. I've played a lot of sports in my life, and sometimes it's not the better team. The hot teams can make, can really make up some ground when they're hot and playing well.
All right, so you got Kansas City and Washington?
I haven't decided on the NFC game yet. I like Kansas City just because, until somebody beats them, you got to go with them, right?
Right. But Washington, boy, they got the magic of the kid, right? Jaden Daniels going up against, a really tough, strong, physical, powerful Philadelphia team, right? So that's an interesting matchup.
It should be close, right?
I would think so.
It should be close. An interesting matchup is exactly the way I see it. It should be close. A good offense sometimes will, a good defense can sometimes overpower a good offense. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Hurts isn't very good thrower, right? His passing abilities, are less than desirable. And they really haven't played that well in the playoffs. But again, that's the sign of a good team too. When you don't play well, but you can still win.
And I think they got two excellent receivers in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. So I'm surprised, Hurts has not done a little bit more with them. Sometimes he likes to keep the ball a lot, run a lot, and run in some touchdowns. And, he's got double-digit touchdowns this year himself. So sometimes I think he gets overwhelmed with that. But your son chimed in. He says the Bills and Eagles, but even though KC winning another to upset a lot of Patriots faithful would be more than welcome to him.
Yeah. He doesn't like. He grew up in an era where the Patriots won all the time, and he thought that the fans are very spoiled. And I will be honest with you, Paul. I will admit that I do not want Kansas City to win. I do not want them to win 3 in a row, because then we're going to hear how much better they were than my team and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, which I don't think. You could measure those two.
So
things.
you are one of those Patriot fans that are like.
Well, no, I'm not. I don't think I'm spoiled. I just don't want them to have the bragging rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm a Patriots fan. I was telling Chris, but I find it annoying that some of my Patriot comrades are like, "Oh, look at it, got another call. Oh, look at it," like kind of whining about Kansas City's success.
Yeah, I agree, and I will agree. I will agree that Tom Brady probably got some calls, and I will agree that some of the rules changed because of Tom Brady, right?
Yeah.
To protect him personally, and I agree with all that. I don't think you can argue that. Mm-hmm. But I do believe this, and I'm not sure if Chris has heard me say this before. I never saw Tom Brady flop, and I never saw him cry and whine about there was no flag. He took it like a man. That's not the case that I see on these recent Sundays.
Well, but sometimes Brady would argue with the referee, not too often.
Yeah, sometimes he'd take his helmet off.
I don't think it was about roughing the passer penalties, though. You know what I'm saying? I will agree that, like, if he thought someone was held or offside or something like that, I thought that he was a captain and he used those benefits to try to get a message across. But I don't personally remember him, getting hit and getting up and saying, that should have been a flag. And I certainly don't remember him flopping out of bounds like I saw this weekend.
Yeah. He waited until he got to the sideline, and then he cried and whined, like your son just said in his comments.
No, I like Mahomes. I'm a big fan of Mahomes. I think he's great for the game. I love the it factor, where he marched down the field and won the Super Bowl. But I don't like the, I'm going to the sideline and somebody pushes me and I start rolling around like I got shot, or like he'll take advantage of, you can't hit the quarterback. So then he'll go down the sideline, and just when he's about to be hit, the linebacker backs off and then he tries to sneak another couple of yards in there, that kind of thing. But that's what competitors do. They'll do anything to win,
Someone is going to suck up the 15 yards in the personal foul and maybe getting thrown out of the game, and it may cost him his career if he keeps doing that.
Yeah, well, somebody might say, you know what, we're going to just lay this guy out, and I don't care about the penalty.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
If you're going to make believe you're going out of bounds, and then when the linebacker lets up, and then you take a couple extra steps, that may be your last couple extra.
This guy whines to the referee as much as Jason Tatum, for God's sake.
But we'll see. I think, on paper, Buffalo and Kansas City should be the better game, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I hope so.
All right, Butch. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to you calling me on my other show, which is much more difficult, but I'm enjoying that one too.
Fair enough.
All right, thank you very much. All right, all right. Let's see what I'm doing over here. Oh God! So, any thoughts on what he had to say?
Well, listen. I mean, unfortunately, today's generation, that's part of the game, and that's the way they play it. You see it in basketball, you see it in football, you've seen it, for a long time now, for the last few years. Flopping in some of these things have been one of the rule changes that have happened.
Well, Marcus Smart in basketball, right? He used to do it all the time.
Like I said, one of the rule changes, but it also says that, how much do we protect the quarterback?
Right.
And so you're going to slide. And how many flags have we seen for, just whispering by the guy, just maybe, touching helmet to helmet compared to, drilling them? Then you've seen that as some are called and some are not called. As much as we saw when Goff threw an interception the other day for the Lions, the guy from the Redskins comes up, clocks him right in the chin, sends him flying, and no flag was called there. So, it's just that type of a new system, new play calling, and new flags in the game. Sometimes you win with it and sometimes you don't, but you live and die. But these quarterbacks better be careful because you could easily get hurt in this league.
Well, and I'm a big fan of Mahomes, but I don't like it when he tries to take advantage of the situation. If you're going to go into the slide, go into the slide.
Absolutely.
Don't pretend you're going to go into the slide and try to get that extra yard because that's not what the rule is there for. We're there to protect the quarterbacks because it's good for the league. But anyway, let's go. Let's go to Ryan in Rochester. Hello,
Rhino.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah, good. How are you?
What's happening?
Doing pretty well. How about you guys?
Good. Who's going to the Super Bowl?
I think it's going to be a rematch of a couple of years ago. As much as I want it to be, I'm with you, Paul. But I think Jaden Daniels is that guy. I just don't know if the way their defense has been playing, if they'll be able to sort of keep up because Detroit's had flaws in their defense all year and they've had injuries. So the fact they end up putting up as many points as they did is not too surprising. But I think Philly's defense is fairly healthy. They've had the number one defense in the league the whole year. I feel like Vic Fangio is going to have something cooked up at home for those guys. So I think Saquon's going to run through that defense too. And then even if Jalen Hurts doesn't play well, I think they've just it's going to be too much for him.
So you got Philadelphia? Yep,
I've got Philadelphia there. And then as much as I want to see Buffalo, finally break through because they've gone up against the Chiefs so many times and it's been so close, but they always find a way to come short. I want them to break through this year and then win the whole thing because it'd be so cool to see Josh finally win one.
Right.
And a way to kind of stick it to Stephon Diggs too. Like he's playing better than he has his whole career and he doesn't even have one of the best receivers and one of the biggest divas at wide receiver along with them, the way he's been spreading the ball around. But excuse me, I just think the way that Kansas City's been playing on defense and then Mahomes just finding ways to win, I just think it's going to happen again, especially up at Arrowhead. So I've got a rematch of 2022. Give me Kansas City, Philly.
All right, you're with me and Chris on this one.
Yeah, we're all together on this one. And on another topic, Ryan, we've been texting today, me and you. You got Vrabel, you got McDaniels, and you got Williams. Are you happy? Are you right where you want to be? And now just look forward to drafting in free agency, and then let's see what happens.
So I'm still very curious as to what some of the other, like the lower assistants will look like. Even though it seems, I've seen a lot of people talk about how McDaniels is kind of like uninspiring, having him come back for the third time. But I think it was a good hire, for a couple of reasons. One, after all, the crap that we've had to deal with, when it comes to offensive coordinators for the past couple, few years now, between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge ruining Mac Jones, and then not allowing Bill O'Brien to hire his own staff. The last time we really had stability on that side of the ball was when McDaniels was calling the shot. So I'll never complain about Josh again. And but the things I'm curious about, it's who's the offensive line coach going to be. I think that's important. And then I'm hoping on hope that they capitalize on the I'll say this again. it was a mistake by Miami to let Wes Welker go, because between San Francisco and between Miami, he's been one of the best wide receiver coaches that there's in the league for quite some time now. So I really don't like the fact they let him go, and I hope the Patriots jump on that. Probably the best wide receivers coach that we would have in a while. And then, even though I think Josh is probably going to double mostly as a QB coach as well, I'm curious to see if they get someone decent at QB coach.
They retained Springer, right? The special teams coach?
Yep. Very happy they retained him because, the special teams was the least of their issues last year. I just think they need an upgraded kicker because, Joey Sly started off hot once he won the job, but then he ended up kind of tailing off really badly. But I thought, the return's been good. The punt and kick coverage has been pretty good the whole year. And, I know Pro Football Focus it shouldn't be like a Bible or anything, but the special teams last year was ranked number 2 in the league per PFF, I think. So I like the retention there. And, Terrell Williams it's kind of like a wait and see sort of thing because we did deal with somewhat of a similar thing last year with, DeMarcus Covington was D-line coach, got elevated defensive coordinator and didn't exactly go well. But at the same time, you have someone in Vrabel who's experienced not only as a head coach, obviously, but he was also a defensive coordinator beforehand. So I kind of like that idea more of, Terrell Williams, who's been an experienced D-line coach for years now, but then you have, Vrabel sort of backstopping him to help him out. So, overall, I like the staff, even though I think they could have done better at defensive coordinator. And again, we talked about this before. Shane Bowen would have been my choice, but the Giants weren't letting him go in a lateral move, so that's kind of a moot point. But I'm excited to see how it goes. I think wide receivers coach and offensive line coach, those are the main 2 other coaches on the staff I'll be looking at before I say kind of move on to free agency in the draft.
All right. Well, Mr. Chris has a commitment, so we got to wind it down. Did you have one more thing you wanted to say, Chris?
No. I said it sounds good, Rhino, and I think you'll see that pretty soon because Vrabel's making a lot of decisions now.
All right. Well, Ryan, hopefully we'll chat again before the Super Bowl. Stay warm.
You guys do the same. Thanks for having me on again, guys.
All right. Thanks very much. Okay, so we have Nelson from Fall River has Buffalo and Washington.
Yep.
Paul, Chris, and Ryan have Kansas City and Philadelphia.
Yep.
And Butch has Kansas City and Washington. That'd be a good one. The kid versus Mahomes. That'd be great. Well, anyway, we'd like to thank Scotty's Pub in Fall River. We'd like to thank Citywide Glass, Dartmouth, Fall River, and Taunton, Lakeville Athletic Club, and Attorney John Seed for supporting Santos on sports. And Chris, hopefully it'll be a great weekend of football. We'll be looking forward to that one.
Yes, I will be. So that's one Saturday, one Sunday. So stick around for that one, and everybody stay warm. Have a good weekend. Hopefully the weather changes, and that's what I feel is going to happen. And hopefully I'm wrong, but I think it's Eagles and Chiefs.
All right. We'll see. All right. For Chris Santos, I am Paul Santos. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you again real soon.